For the longest time, there's been this perception about Canadian immigration, kind of like it's always been pretty straightforward, maybe even easy.
Right.
Like you study, you get some work experience, and boom, you're on a path to stay. Canada, the land of opportunity. Just put in the
Yeah.
work.
Uh-huh.
But the big question now, and honestly feels like it's on everyone's mind, is that still true? Is Canada really that relatively accessible place it used to be?
Okay, let me just jump in right there and kind of shatter that idea. If you're looking at immigrating to Canada today, in 2025, the reality is completely different.
How different?
Worlds apart.
Yeah.
What used to feel manageable has, well, some sources are calling it top tier 5-star difficulty. It's not an exaggeration. The whole game has changed fundamentally.
Okay, wow. 5-star difficulty. That really paints a picture. And it
Yeah.
definitely goes against that older narrative many of us, myself included, probably still have in our heads. So that's our mission for this deep dive then. Let's unpack why. Why this huge shift? We've got some great source material, including our really insightful YouTube video transcript that maps this out. We want to help you understand the forces at play and what this tougher new reality actually means if you're thinking about coming to Canada.
Yeah, it's crucial to understand the timeline.
Definitely. So let's rewind a bit. Before things got so tough, what did that normal process look like? You mentioned straightforward.
Yeah, it was pretty standard for many. You'd come as an international student, finish your program, then you'd usually get what's called a post-graduation work permit, a PGWP.
Right, the PGWP. That gives you time to work here.
Exactly,
Yeah.
often for up to 3 years. And during that time, the idea was you'd find your way to permanent residency, usually through the Federal Express Entry System or maybe a provincial nominee program, a PNP.
Okay.
And honestly, some paths back then were so open, you didn't even necessarily need a specific job offer lined up right away for certain streams. It felt like there was always some route available.
Always an option. Sounds quite different.
It was. But then the pandemic hit, and that's really the pivotal moment. Things changed, and not gradually, but very suddenly. It was like the great floodgates, as people call them, just burst open starting around 2020.
Floodgates. What triggered that?
Two massive events, back-to-back, really. First, early 2021, the Canadian Experience class, the CEC draw within Express Entry. Because of travel restrictions, they couldn't bring people in from overseas.
Right, borders were closed.
So to hit their immigration targets, they did something unprecedented. They invited basically everyone eligible in the CEC pool already inside Canada. The score needed. It plummeted from the usual 400s down to 75.
75 out of 600 points?
75. It was unbelievable. Over 27,000 people got invited in one go. Just like that.
Wow. Okay, that's huge. What was the second event?
A few months after that, they rolled out a temporary policy called the Temporary Resident to Permanent Resident Pathway, TR to PR.
Ah, I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah, it was a direct line to PR for recent grads who were already working here and, crucially, only needed an IELTS score of 5.0.
5.0, that's pretty basic English proficiency, isn't it?
Very accessible. So that policy just absorbed tens of thousands more local graduates. It was a massive intake from within Canada.
So these moves solved an immediate problem hitting targets during the pandemic, but it sounds like they set the stage for future problems, like a huge wave of demand down the line.
You've got it exactly. Short-term fixes, but the long-term consequences were profound, and we're right in the middle of them now.
Okay, so connect the dots for us. How did opening these floodgates lead to where we are in 2025?
Well, the immediate ripple effect was this enormous surge in international students coming to Canada. Why? Because suddenly, Canada looked like a very easy place to immigrate to again. That perception shifted fast.
Ah, okay. The message got out.
Absolutely. And student numbers just climbed and climbed, really hitting a peak in 2023. And let's be honest, for the vast majority, studying here wasn't just about the degree. It was seen as the main ticket to immigration.
So fast forward to now, 2025. Those students who arrived during that surge.
Right. Many of them are now a year or two out of graduation. They've got their PGWPs, they're working, and they're all looking for permanent residency at the same time.
And that's causing problems.
Immense problems,
Yeah.
strain on everything. Housing is the big one. Everyone talks about rents through the roof, house prices, well, even more exaggerated, as one source put it. It's incredibly tough.
Yeah, you hear about the housing crisis constantly.
Then there's healthcare. Finding a family doctor, good luck. Hospitals are overcrowded. Social facilities, public transport. Everything is feeling the pressure. And the job market, especially for entry-level roles that new grads need. super competitive.
So this must be affecting public opinion, right? Canadians are generally seen as welcoming, but this level of strain.
It absolutely has. You're seeing widespread discontent.
Oh,
Even in traditionally multicultural cities, people are saying, hold on, this isn't sustainable. They're calling for restrictions.
what are the signs of that dissatisfaction?
It's things like seeing international students, who everyone knows pay very high tuition, lining up at food banks. That hits hard. When people face these daily struggles, housing, healthcare waits, crowded services, they start questioning the immigration levels.
And is the government getting blamed?
Heavily. The Liberal Party, Prime Minister Trudeau, they're facing a lot of criticism. There's a perception that they let things get out of control and were too slow to react when the problems became obvious. That initial response seemed ineffective to many.
Okay, so intense pressure, public frustration. When I look at the 5-star difficulty you mentioned, it really does feel like just basic math, right? Too much demand, not enough supply. Is it really that straightforward?
At its heart, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. It boils down to a really stark math problem, a massive mismatch.
Explain that mismatch.
Okay, supply side. The government is tightening up. Immigration policies are getting stricter, and crucially, the annual quotas, the number of PR spots available, are shrinking, fewer spots overall.
Okay, supply is down. And demand.
Demand is, well, too many, is how one source described it. You've got that huge wave of graduates from the 2021 floodgates and the 2023 student peak, all needing PR now, plus ongoing interest from overseas. Demand is sky high, while supply is contracting.
Right, so how does this math problem, this squeeze, actually play out in the main immigration pathways, like express entry, the PMPs? What's happening there on the ground?
Let's start with express entry. It's been dramatic. The points needed
Yeah.
consistently over 500. Now, remember we talked about the 400s being normal before?
Yeah, and that 75-point draw seems like ancient history now.
Totally. To give you perspective, the last time any draw for all occupations dipped below 500. Actually, the last time a really low score, like 100 points, was drawn was August 15th, 2023, almost 2 years ago.
Wow.
In 2025. The most recent draw needed 534 points. The lowest score invited this year was 518. So if you're not scoring well above 500, you're basically out of the running for general draws. Most applicants just don't have those kinds of scores.
Okay, so express entry is incredibly tough unless you have a very high score or maybe a specific in-demand occupation. What about the provincial nominee programs, the PNPs? Were they the backup plan?
They were, but now you could describe it as a collapse of the PMPs in 2025. It's been brutal.
A collapse. What caused that?
A major trigger was a federal decision, kind of a blunt instrument. They basically halved the PNP quotas for 2025 compared to 2024. Just chopped them in half across the board.
Whoa, the provinces must have been shocked.
Completely caught off guard, especially because provinces often over-invite. Like Ontario in 2024 invited over 40,000 people when their actual quota from the feds was just over 20,000. They planned for some people not accepting or qualifying.
So cutting the quota in half.
Created chaos. Provinces are scrambling. They're jacking up the requirements, points needed, work experience. They're adding new, sometimes extremely harsh conditions, things that can be really hard to meet, like needing existing family or job offers in specific remote regions.
Things outside an applicant's direct control sometimes.
Exactly. Or they're just accepting way fewer applications, pausing programs entirely. And some are being called lazy and rogue, basically saying, even if you meet all our published criteria, we don't guarantee we'll actually nominate you.
That sounds incredibly frustrating. So you could do everything right and still get nothing.
It's becoming a reality in some PMPs. The predictability is gone.
So let me recap. Express entry scores are sky high, out of reach for most. PMPs are either slammed shut, have near impossible conditions, or are unpredictable. Sounds pretty bleak. Is there anything left, any pathway that's still, working?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And for a while, there was a glimmer of hope. The French language stream within Express Entry.
Ah, the category-based draws. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it launched late 2023. It was set up as a priority category, and initially, it was a huge advantage. The scores needed were much lower than general draws, often around 400, sometimes even dipping into the 300s.
Okay, significantly lower than the 500 plus we see elsewhere.
Right. It looked like a great deal because, simply put, fewer people in the pool met the French language requirements. Less competition.
But I suspect there's a but coming.
There is. A big one. Very recently, the competitiveness in that French stream has just exploded.
How so?
A recent draw invited 2,500 people. The cutoff score, 481.
481. That's way up from the 300s you mentioned.
Way up. It's a jump of over 100 points in just a few months. Back on March 21st, the score was 379. Now 481. It's a massive shift.
Where's the sudden spike?
Because all the other doors are closing, or seem to be. Express entry general draws are too high, PNPs are a mess, so everyone who can potentially qualify for the French stream is now rushing towards it. It's become the only perceived viable option for many.
And learning French, is that feasible for many applicants?
For some, yes. Particularly native Spanish or Portuguese speakers, the structure is similar. Even for some dedicated English speakers, reaching the required level, while challenging, is seen as more achievable than getting, say, 60 more points for express entry. So people are putting in the effort.
So that last hope is now getting crowded. Very crowded.
Extremely crowded. That 481 draw feels like a real watershed moment.
Okay, so what's the outlook for this French stream then? Is it just going to get harder and harder, just like everything else? Or will the government try to keep it more accessible?
It's likely a mix. Politically, the current Liberal government strongly supports French language immigration. It's a priority. So the stream itself isn't going away.
Okay, that's something.
And the quotas for it are projected to increase each year. But, and this is but we're talking small increases. Maybe 1,000 or 2,000 extra spots per year.
Which is
A drop in the bucket compared to the sheer number of people now targeting this stream because other options are gone. So while it will continue, that 481 score, it signals that the days of easy points are likely over. Competition will keep rising. The flood seems to be hitting this channel now, too.
This leads to a question a lot of people must be asking, maybe hoping. Is this just a temporary crunch? Is 2025 just a bad year and things might swing back to, normal soon? Is their optimism justified?
Look, I understand why people hope that.
Yeah.
But based on the official data, specifically Canada's own 2025-2027 immigration levels plan, that optimism seems misplaced, I'm afraid.
Why do you say that? What does the plan show?
Two key things, going back to supply and demand. First, supply. The plan actually shows the number of permanent residents Canada intends to accept decreasing slightly in 2026 and then holding steady in 2027. It's not going up. If anything, it's tightening further.
So supply shrinks or stays flat. What about demand?
Demand is set to increase. Remember that peak international student arrival year was 2023.
Right.
Those students will be hitting their peak eligibility for PR, finishing their 1-2 years of work experience in 2026 and 2027. So you'll have even more graduates competing for those shrinking or stagnant PR spots in the next 2 years than you have right now in 2025.
Decreasing supply, increasing demand. The math doesn't look good.
It doesn't. It points towards the next 3 years, 2025, 2026, 2027, being persistently difficult. It's been described quite bleakly as a great famine after a great flood.
A famine after the flood.
And the really sobering part, this isn't a natural disaster. It's seen by analysts as an entirely man-made disaster, a result of policy decisions and perhaps a lack of foresight about the downstream consequences.
So wrapping this up, it's clear that old image of Canada having this easy, open door for immigration, that's just not the reality anymore, not in 2025.
Not at all.
It's been replaced by extreme difficulty, and the reasons are complex but clear. The ripple effects from those pandemic-era policies, a fundamental mismatch between shrinking supply and surging demand, and policies tightening across the board, express entry, PNPs, and now even that French stream is feeling the intense pressure.
That sums it up well. The landscape has fundamentally shifted.
So maybe a final thought for our listeners to chew on. Given this analysis, this prediction that things might actually get worse before they get better, into 2026, 2027, what does this whole situation, this man-made disaster, as you called it, what does it tell us about how governments plan or perhaps fail to plan for these big demographic shifts and the social pressures that come with them?
That's exactly the question. How responsive are our systems when faced with these kinds of unforeseen consequences and rapid changes? It's certainly something worth considering as you watch how things unfold, not just in Canada, but globally too.